Diagonals of quadrilaterals. So, different quadrilaterals have diagonals with special properties. Kites, isosceles trapezoids, parallelograms, rhombuses, rectangles, and squares all have special properties of their diagonals. In some cases, the diagonals bisect each other. Some cases, the diagonals are perpendicular. In some cases, the diagonals are congruent. So we're going to go through each of those cases. Diagonals bisect each other in all parallelograms. So we talked about this before with the parallelogram definitions. So bisecting each other meaning that it cuts it in half, that this half equals that half, and that half equals that half. It does not mean that all four pieces are the same, just the ones on the same line. This includes parallelograms, of course, but rhombuses, rectangles, and squares are also special types of parallelograms. So if I ask, do the diagonals bisect each other in rectangles? Yes, they do, because a rectangle is a special type of parallelogram. In a kite, the diagonals are perpendicular. So this includes kites, of course, but rhombuses and squares are also types of kites because there are two pairs of adjacent congruent sides. So perpendicular, meaning again that they meet at a 90-degree angle. So here you see a kite, and the diagonals will be perpendicular. Diagonals are congruent in all isosceles trapezoids. So if I say that this side is congruent to that, and that is parallel to that, we can say that the isosceles trapezoid, the diagonals must be the same. Now they don't bisect each other if it's an isosceles trapezoid, but rectangles and squares are types of isosceles trapezoids, so their diagonals are also congruent. The summary is here. So a kite has perpendicular diagonals, an isosceles trapezoid has congruent diagonals. All of these are types of parallelograms. Rhombuses, rectangles, and squares are all types of parallelograms, so they all have diagonals bisect each other. Rhombuses and squares are both types of kites, so their diagonals are also perpendicular. And rectangles and squares are both types of isosceles trapezoids, so their diagonals are also congruent. You can either look at this horizontally, saying, oh, parallelograms, their diagonals bisect each other. Rhombuses they bisect each other and they're perpendicular. Rectangles, they bisect each other and are congruent. Squares, they bisect each other, they're perpendicular, and they're congruent. So you need to know the definitions of these shapes. Typically, the easiest thing to do is separately you need to know that rhombuses, rectangles, and squares, that they are types of the other three things. And then remember that they bisect each other in a parallelogram, that they are perpendicular in a kite, and lastly, that they are congruent in an isosceles trapezoid. Thank you very much.